But what happens when a deputy breaks his ribs in pursuit of a convict? Just like the case of 34-year-old Nicholas Garrison, who was just sentenced to 6 months in jail for possession of meth charge in Greenfield, Ohio. After getting the sentence, the bailiffs were set to put Garrison in handcuffs at the back of the Highland County Courthouse before the 34-year-old made a smart move. As one of the bailiffs detaining Garrison turned away for a moment, he decided to take the easy way out. Garrison took off and ran through the courtroom all the way to the exit. The door leads to a set of stairs, so immediately Garrison bursts out of the courtroom. He finds his way down the stairs. The bailiff after him dived headfirst over the stair rail as he tried to grab the running convict, but Garrison managed to slip away. Garrison was able to get outside of the courthouse and went into hiding for days. 4 days later, the sheriffs received tips which led them to a motel in Clinton County. The 34-year-old was found at the hotel and taken into custody. He got additional charges of 1 count of escape, a 3rd-degree felony, and 1 count of assault on a peace officer. Garrison was sentenced to an additional 6 years in prison in the same courtroom. As for the bailiff who tried to stop Garrison, he broke 4 ribs and suffered a minor concussion when he landed on the stairs. While Garrison might have fled from the courtroom due to fear of serving his jail time, the defendant in the next case slipped away from the deputy before entering the courthouse. This is Joel Sanchez Delgado, who was escorted in a wheelchair to the Pulaski County Courthouse in Little Rock, Arkansas. 41-year-old Delgado is facing charges of burglary and possession of firearms. The convict reportedly told the police that he was injured and could not move his legs, which explains why he is being transported in a wheelchair.
Fake illness or fake injury, that was most likely what happened.
As Delgado was being wheeled into the courthouse, he distracted the deputy by complaining that he had lost his shoe.
What'd you say, OJ? My shoe. Hey, you see a shoe back there? Where is it? Oh.
As the officer bent down to help him with his shoe, Delgado did the unexpected. Delgado, who claimed he couldn't walk with his legs, jumped out of the wheelchair and made a run for it. The officer engaged in a foot pursuit after the 41-year-old, but he seems to have gone far.
Oh, I'm gonna catch you, baby. I'm finna shoot your bitch ass.
During the pursuit, the deputy couldn't call for backups because he had no radio on him. He had to find an alternative.
Hey, can you call the police for me? Call the police for me. Hey, call the police. Call the police. What way it go? Hey, Hook. The wheelchair dude got up and ran. Yeah. I couldn't catch his ass. And my radio was in the mother. I had my camera on though. He jumped the rail. It's on my camera, bro.
Oh, what's that, man?
Unfortunately, the deputy was unable to catch up with him. Delgado was eventually caught 7 miles away from the court several hours later. He claimed he had an injury again and he couldn't walk. Delgado was taken away in an ambulance and was charged with felony escape in addition to his previous charges. It took the efforts of several deputies to apprehend Delgado, but what happens when a judge has to pursue evading defendants? Just like the case of Tanner Jacobson and Cody Howard, who are currently in court for driving on suspended licenses. The two defendants were handcuffed and dressed in prison uniforms, waiting for their sentences. As Judge Buzzard was about to read their sentence, Jacobson and Howard did what left everyone in disbelief. The two inmates bolted out of the courtroom with their handcuffs. However, Judge Buzzard also took immediate action and went after them. While the two were on the run outside the courtroom, Howard slipped and fell due to his uncomfortable shoes. The district judge followed Howard and Jacobson down the multiple flights of stairs toward the emergency exit. However, only one of the two was able to make it outside the court. Just when Howard was about to find his way through the door, the judge caught up with him. Jacobson made it outside, but he stopped a few blocks away and surrendered to the police.
I only get like 4 blocks and then I stop. I just stopped on my own. I'm like, what am I doing right now?
One would think the two already had the escape plan before entering the court, but their confession during an interview says otherwise.
It was just a split second, decision. I don't even know why I did it. I would be out of here if I wouldn't have ran.
I didn't try to escape to get out. I tried to escape to get well, and I tried to do what I could, do what I could do to get my drug addiction.
The two inmates were initially sentenced to 30 days in jail, however. Their escape earned them a longer time in jail. Jacobson was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison for additional charges of a single count of second-degree escape. Howard's, on the other hand, was sentenced to 36.75 months behind bars on the charges of second-degree escape, first-degree trafficking and stolen property, and third-degree theft.
On May 26, 2017, Jeremy Christian harassed 2 teenage girls. When 3 men intervened, Christian attacked them with a knife, causing the deaths of 2 individuals and severely injuring another person. Christian was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted first-degree murder, and several counts of assault and intimidation.
Yes, Judge, my name is Greg Scholl, 9544039 from the Metropolitan.
Free speech or die, Portland. You got no safe place. This is America. Get out if you don't like free speech.
He shows up to court for his arraignment and starts causing a scene immediately. The trial began in January 2020 in Multnomah County Circuit Court. As the victim, Demetria Hester, was giving her statement at his sentencing, Mr. Christian loses it and starts threatening her before getting kicked out of the courtroom.
In my case, the white supremacist got special treatment from the police. The police officer Gaskin believed the assault was made by the assailant. He didn't believe me or the 2 TriMet supervisors. The police captured, not killed, a racist white supremacist known to the police. Holding the bloody knife, he attacked and killed people with while drinking wine from his Gatorade bottle. And to Mr. Jeremy Christian, your mom should have swallowed you. You are a waste of breath. And when you die and go to hell, I hope you rot.
See you there. You ain't gonna be mayor either. You ain't gonna be mayor either. The whole city. George Floyd. George Floyd. I should have. I should have. Everybody knows you're alive. Everybody knows you're alive, huh?
In February 2020, The jury found Jeremy Christian guilty on all counts, including 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and assault. Christian was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus over 50 years, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life in prison. But this next case wasn't any better. On April 13, 2014, Miller opened fire outside the Jewish Community Center of Greater Kansas City and the Village Shalom Retirement Community. He killed 3 people: 14-year-old Reet Underwood, his grandfather William Corporon, and Terry Lamano.
For the Jews, who rule every one of them through money. The United States government is required by the Constitution that they sworn to uphold to protect each state from invasion. There's 20,000 illegal aliens who crossed our borders illegally, breaking our laws, by the hundreds of thousands, some case millions. There's no law, they didn't pass a law against criticizing us, white people, or black people, or Native Americans, or any other people, just the Jews. It's called the Global Anti-Semitism Act of 2004. He got a slam dunk. Let's face it, y'all gonna put me on death row, everybody knows that. He got all that, but he's not satisfied.
Mr. Miller?
He wants to stop me from...
Miller shouted anti-Semitic statements during the attacks, though none of his victims were Jewish. He used the United States Constitution to excuse the actions he took, showing no remorse at all.
The state must prove my criminal intent. I submit that I had no criminal intent. I had a patriotic intent to stop the genocide against my people. This genocide is as obvious as the words diversity, the melting pot, and changing demographics. That's what it means. That's white genocide. I also have the right to explain to you jurors, you juror members, my frame of mind on April 13, 2014, the day of the shooting, for what was in my head that aroused so much anger and intense dislikes. Anger that enraged a 73-year-old married father of 6, retired United States Army Master Sergeant on pension, who lived a good and happy family life on our farm in Missouri. What the hell caused me to commit such a bloody, deadly act? You've got a right to know that, and you got a right to know all of it.
Miller, representing himself, admitted to the shootings but pleaded not guilty, arguing his actions were meant to protect the white race.
I find from the review of the entirety of the evidence presented in this trial that the jury's verdict should be and is affirmed. And for your conviction for capital murder, you will be transported to the Kansas Department of Corrections to carry out the sentence of death by lethal injection as provided by Kansas law.
One day, my spirit will rise from my grave, and you all know that I was right.
On September 2015, the jury found Frazier Glenn Miller guilty on all charges, including capital murder and first-degree murder. Miller was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The judge also sentenced him to 69 additional years for other crimes related to the shooting spree. The cycle of racially motivated violence continued nearly 7 years later. On May 14, 2022, Peyton Gendron, a white supremacist, drove over 200 miles to a predominantly black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York. He opened fire at the Tops Friendly Markets grocery store, killing 10 people and injuring 3 others. Most of the victims were black. Gendron live-streamed the attack and left behind a manifesto expressing his racist and anti-Semitic beliefs.
I want to acknowledge that today is what I can only imagine. One of many solemn days in the lives of the survivors and the family members of those who died. Their words are heart-wrenching. Their loss unimaginable. Only those who have lived it can truly understand their anguish. For the devastation that he caused, Peyton Gendron will be sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison with no possibility of ever being released. Our client committed these terrible crimes. He is responsible for his actions.
and he will be held accountable, and he will suffer the consequences for what he did. This case highlights, however, a much deeper problem. This young man's violent, hate-fueled assault was in part the product of centuries of pervasive racism and discrimination in this country. These problems need to be addressed, just as many others have publicly demanded since this terrible event took place. Unfortunately, neither this proceeding nor any criminal trial can expose or address the historical racism that set the stage for our client's horrible acts. We, as a community, need to have those conversations in our legislative bodies and in our living rooms to achieve meaningful change. We know that some of the families and their lawyers have asked for the information collected by law enforcement during their investigations of this crime. We support that request. We hope the resolution of this case brings the day for that information to be shared closer. The racist hate that motivated this crime was spread through online platforms, and the violence that was made possible was in part due to the easy access of assault weapons. Still, our client is responsible for this crime. He will spend the rest of his life locked away, and eventually he will die in state prison. We hope that knowing he will never be free again will offer some small bit of comfort to those that he hurt so much.
Victims' families had the opportunity to confront the man who shattered their lives.
And my dad was Andre McNeil. He went to that store to get a cake for my little brother because May 14th is his birthday, my little brother's birthday. And he turned 3 years old, and he didn't get to celebrate his birthday with his dad because he never came back. So, I was told to write an impact statement. First, I was being selfish, and I said I wasn't gonna do it, but then I remember I wasn't doing it for this selfish coward, or the courts, or the press, but I was doing it for my dad, my best friend, who was snatched from this world because of something he couldn't change, the color of his skin.
Do I hate you? No. Do I want to hurt you? Yes. And trust me and believe, these dudes can't stop me, really. I'm the littlest thing in here, very agile, but I don't want to hurt you. And I got 9 children, 10 children I got to go home to. Andre had 5. And they can't even see him anymore. And my nephew, my 3-year-old nephew, every day, he's calling for his father.
Ask him when he's coming back from Buffalo.
And he can't? And he's not coming? You know how bad that hurts?
A grieving family member tried to handle things on their own.
That ain't fair to say. You gonna come to our city and decide you don't like black people. Man, you don't know a damn thing about black people. We're human. We like our kids to go to good schools. We love our kids. We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
The family member who tried to act on their own was quickly removed from the courtroom. After all the testimonies, the shooter finally spoke up.
I'm very sorry for all the pain I forced the victims and their families to suffer through. I'm very sorry for stealing the lives of your loved ones. I cannot express how much I regret all the decisions I made leading up to my actions on May 14th. I did a terrible thing that day. I shot and killed people because they were black. Looking back now, I can't believe I actually did it. I believed what I read online and acted out of hate. I know I can't take it back, but I wish I could.
In November 2022, Gendron pleaded guilty to state charges, including murder, hate-motivated domestic terrorism, and other related charges. Gendron admitted to his crimes and expressed remorse during the trial.
There is no place for you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society. There can be no mercy for you, no understanding, no second chances. The damage you have caused is too great, and the people you have hurt are too valuable to this community. You will never see the light of day as a free man ever again. It is the judgment of this court for your conviction under the first count of the indictment, a domestic act of terrorism motivated by hate in the first degree, an A1 felony, that you be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
Gendron was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the state charges. Gendron's case underscores the deadly impact of hate, similar to the actions of Russell Courtier in Oregon. On August 10, 2016, Russell Courtier, a member of a white supremacist gang called European Kindred, and his girlfriend Colleen Hunt encountered 19-year-old Larnell Bruce Jr., a black teenager, outside a 7-Eleven store in Gresham, Oregon. An altercation ensued, during which Bruce attempted to flee. Courtier and Hunt chased him in their Jeep, ultimately running him over. Bruce died from his injuries a few days later. The prosecution argued that Courtier's actions were racially motivated and stemmed from his affiliation with a white supremacist gang.
Before midnight, on a summer night in August, 2.5 years ago, Mr. Courtier got into a Jeep owned by his fiancée, Colleen Hunt, to drive, along with her, to a 7-Eleven store about a half mile from where she lived. It was an old Jeep. Didn't run very well. It had a soft top and soft plastic windows that didn't offer much in the way of protection. But there was no need to worry about it. Again, they were just going to 7-Eleven, a half mile from where she lived. What neither Mr. Courtier nor Ms. Hunt knew that night as they drove toward the 7-Eleven was that there, waiting at the store, was a group of people who were about to set in motion a series of events with catastrophic consequences. What this case is going to turn on, what was in Mr. Courtier's mind? What were his thoughts? What were his intentions? What were his fears? How calmly and rationally was he able to make decisions and understand everything going on around him in that extremely threatening, traumatic...
The defense did not deny that Courtier ran over Bruce, but argued that it was not premeditated murder. They claimed that the incident was not racially motivated, and that Courtier did not intend to kill Bruce.
You didn't just ruin my life, but you ruined your own. You have a son, and now he has to live the rest of his life without his father. I think what you did was, it was bigger than us. That ideology that you have, it's not good for anybody. You didn't just make us suffer. You have your own family suffering as well. Your son now has to grow up and put this all inside his head and try to figure out, and hopefully he doesn't make and think the same way that you do. This world it doesn't belong to any of us. We're just here visiting, and everyone has a right to be here.
I would like to start off saying that I started raising my son at the same age that he died, 19 years old. From the minute that he was put in my arms, he never left my sight. He was the mama's boy, attached at the hip, doing everything with me, from cooking to cleaning, the yard work, everything that none of the other kids wanted to do. I like to tell a story that's one of my favorite stories about Bubba. When he was 3, I would complain to my husband about the light not being fixed. And as husbands do, he procrastinated on fixing it. I woke up in the morning and man had taken every light switch off with a screwdriver at 3 years old and handed me the screws and told me that he fixed it.
The family of the victim take the stance in court speaking about the whole situation.
We, the jury, find the defendant as to count 1, murder, guilty. And so the jurors did not answer the other questions related to count 1. On count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant as to count 2, failure to perform the duties of a driver, guilty. And we, the jury, find the defendant as to count 3, intimidation in the second degree, guilty.
On March 19, 2019, Russell Courtier was found guilty of murder, second-degree intimidation, and failure to perform the duties of a driver. Courtier was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 28 years.